Okay, so this is the video. This is your last video for this school year. This is for Algebra 1, Lesson 102. It's due Tuesday, 5/19, with Worksheet 81, which I'll attach the worksheet on the email that I send you. This is a real easy lesson. It's solving by taking the square roots of both sides, which y'all are used to that because of taking the square root on distance formula and taking the square root when you're using Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to show you some examples out of Lesson 102. I'm going to show you some examples on the worksheet and what it looks like so you'll know how to work them and how I want you to show your work. And then that'll be it. And like I said, this is the last assignment for the year. Remember, you're still working on test 18 and review 18 that's due this Friday, the 15th. And then this is due Tuesday, the 19th, and then the last day of school is the 21st, but I don't have anything due that day. You have everything due on that Tuesday. If I don't have everything in on Thursday the 21st by 4 p.m., you're getting a 0 for it. I'm not taking anything after Thursday 4 p.m. because my last assignment is assigned and has to be in on Tuesday. So I don't even know that I'm going to check my emails on Thursday because it should all be in on Tuesday. Okay, so now let's get to the lesson, which, like I said, it's really easy. So we've got x squared equals 25. So here's the biggest thing you need to remember is we need two answers. This is x squared, it's a quadratic, and so we need two answers. So you just take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to show you the square root. You don't have to show the square root every time. I'm just telling you what you're doing. So this is x equals plus or minus 5. Actually, it can be a plus 5 because when you're solving for x, if I plug positive 5 in, 5 squared is 25, and if I plug in negative 5 and square it in parentheses correctly like I'm supposed to, that gives me positive 25 as well. Okay? So you've always got to remember that plus or minus 5. That's the hardest thing on this, is making sure you remember the plus or minus 5. Okay, then x squared equals 121. So that means x is plus or minus 11. That's all I want to see. You don't have to show the square roots every time. I want you to be able to do these very quickly. So that's another one. Then you can have one like x squared equals 81. So as long as you know your square roots, you're good. So x is plus or minus 9. Do not forget the plus or minus, because I can plug in positive 9 and square it, and it's 81. I can plug in negative 9, and when I square the negative, that's a positive 81 as well. Okay? Now, there is one thing you have to watch out for. X squared equals negative 36. So if I take the square root here, that would be x, but there's not a square root of negative 36, because a square root means I have to take a number times itself. Well, if I take 6 times negative 6, that's negative 36, but that's not 6 times itself. That's 6 times its opposite. So when you're trying to take the square root of a negative, you can't do it. In Algebra 2, we'll go over that. It's actually an imaginary number, but we're not doing that right now, okay? We are looking for real numbers, not imaginary numbers, because in algebra and geometry both, we work with real numbers, okay? So again, if I have x squared equals negative 400, if I try to take that square root, I can't do that. So, sorry, don't need an x, no solution. So you can do the 0 with a slash through it. That's a no solution, okay? Then you'll have some where you need to do what's called isolating the quadratic. You want to isolate that quadratic term, meaning you want to get it by itself. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. So x squared equals 49. And then x can be plus or minus 7. Okay? Again, I took the square root of 49. I've got to have two answers. A positive 7 I squared, I get positive 49. A negative 7 I squared, I get positive 49. Okay? So another one that would look like it is 49 equals x squared minus 15. So I can add 15 to both sides. When I add 15, I get 64. 64 equals x squared, so x is plus or minus 8. And yes, hopefully some of you are thinking, oh my goodness, is this easy? Yes, it is. It is this easy, okay? Don't make it complicated. Don't complicate it. I'm not complicating it. Don't complicate it, okay? So 4x squared minus 100 equals 0. Now this can actually be solved two different ways, but I'm not going to show you different ways. I'm going to show you to isolate the variable again. Isolate that x squared, meaning add 100 to both sides, and you get 4x squared equals 100. Then divide by 4, so x squared would be 25. So x is plus or minus 5. Okay, so we're going to isolate the variable every time. These could be worked as difference of two squares sometimes, but I don't want to go over that. I want this to be a nice, easy, fast, quick lesson for you. But it's a good lesson. It's a lesson we needed to get to. You needed to see these. So that's why I'm doing it. Okay, so let's see. 2x squared, I'm kind of squeezing this on the bottom, plus 5. Oh, wow. I messed up on that one, guys. Okay, let's see. 2x squared plus 5 equals 77. So we'll subtract 5 and get 2x squared equals 72. Then divide by 2. So x squared is 36. And then x is plus or minus 6. Just again, don't forget the plus or minus. Everything should have plus or minus. You should have two answers every time. So let's see. Let's find another couple of examples like that. X squared plus 5 equals 54. So I'm going to subtract 5. So x squared equals 49. Then x is plus or minus 7 because you're taking the square root of both sides. Remember that very first one I showed you, I put the square roots over them, which I don't want you to do every time because I want you to do these really fast, okay? So show that subtracting and then take the square root of both sides. Remember to put the plus or minus because there's two different answers. So 3x squared minus 75 equals 0. So I add 75 to both sides. So 3x squared equals 75. Divide by 3. 75 divided by 3 is 25. So x squared equals 25. So x is plus or minus 5. My plus or minus kind of start looking weird. So it's a positive 5 and a negative 5. Let's see. X squared equals 72. X squared equals 72. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. So that means x is going to be plus or minus the square root of 72. 72 doesn't have a perfect square root. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify the radical. I do not want a decimal in this. I do not want you to do decimals. No decimals. I want simplified radicals. Okay, so don't put any decimals on this. So plus or minus square root of 72. So we take 72, we divide by 2, that's 36. We divide by 2 again, that's 18. 2 again is 9, and then 3 and 3. So I look for my pairs. There's a pair of 2's here. There's a pair of 3's here. So 2 times 3 is 6. These two are on the outside. That 2 is on the inside, so 6 squared roots of 2. So x would equal plus or minus 6 squared roots of 2. So again, make sure that you simplify the radical like I've shown you there. We've gone over simplifying radicals before. Some of you, when you divided by the 2, you probably saw the 36 and were like, wait a minute, the square root of 36 is 6, so it's just 6 squared roots of 2. Okay? But you have to show me. Either you do 2 and then you put the 36 and put 6 and 6, or you show this way. You cannot go directly from square root of 72 to 6 squared roots of 2 without showing me what you did. So let's try another one like that. 5x squared minus 60 equals 0. So we're going to add 60 to both sides. So 5x squared equals 60. Then we're going to divide by 5 because we're isolating the x squared. We're isolating the variable. So 60 divided by 5 is 12. So x is going to be plus or minus the square root of 12. We can't stop there though, and I don't want a decimal. 12 isn't a perfect square. So we do 2 times 2 times 3, that's 12. So that'd be 2 squared roots of 3. Plus or minus x equals. So x equals plus or minus 2 squared roots of 3. That's the way I want to see your answers. Make sure you show all of this work, okay? Let's try another couple like that, where we have to simplify the radicals. X squared equals 40. So again, we want to take the square root of both sides. So x equals plus or minus square root of 40. So then 2 times 2 times 2 times. So that would be a 2, 10. So plus or minus 2 squared roots of 10. So x equals plus or minus 2 squared roots of 10. Simplifying that radical. And then let's see. I want to find some more of those. Just mainly to go over that simplifying the radical again. Again, I do not want decimals on these. I want you to simplify the radical. So let's see. X equals plus or minus square root of 62. 62, let's see. If we divide by 2, that's 31. I don't have any doubles. Notice I don't have any doubles. Ooh, I'm glad I did this one because I need to show y'all this. There's no doubles. So I don't change this to 2 squared roots of 31. I don't change it to 31 squared roots of 2 because I don't have any doubles. I have to have doubles to go on the outside. Like I had a double 2 here, so 1, 2 went on the outside, and the 2 and the 5 went on the inside. I don't have any doubles, so this stays right here. So don't try to reduce something that doesn't reduce. Let's try another one. 4x squared plus 9 equals 82. So let's subtract 9. So that would be 4x squared equals 82 minus 9 is 73. And we divide by 4. This is another good one to show you. This one, we actually can't simplify. Well, I take that back. This can be simplified. Actually, I'll just show it to you. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root. So x is going to be plus or minus the square root of 73 over 4. So what happens here? What happens here is I'm going to take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom. So the square root of 73, 73 is prime. You can't get any factors out of that, so you just leave the 73. But the square root of 4 is 2. Now, you're not going to see very many of these yet. They're going to work out like the ones I've done. But this is a good one to show you that you can take the square root of the top, square root of the bottom, and that simplifies it. Okay? Again, no decimals on that. No decimals on it. Then one other thing I want to show you is if you've got the area of a square, like this area is 864 inches squared, you want the side length. You want the side length of the cube. Okay, so if you see this, this is a cube. So let me... And this is the surface area. This is the surface area of a cube, which is 6 sides squared. So if you're ever given the surface area of a cube, you're going to see more of this in geometry next year. But this does work in to this lesson because what happens is you've got to divide by 6. So let me see what 864 divided by 6 is. That's 144. And then you need to take the square root. So S, and here's another thing I need to talk about. Because some of you, when we did those problems, like the mom problem where she was 36, and some of you put a -9 for the son. Guys, we can't have a negative age. We can't have a negative age. So you have a choice between 36 and -9 when you factor, and then you should have just taken the 36 and then subtracted 27 from it to get the 9, okay? So here, if I'm talking about the side length of a cube, I can't have the negative. So my side length can only be 12 inches. So be careful on problems like that. When it's a side length of a rectangle, side length of a cube, age of a person, talking about people, you can't have negative values for the age of a person or anything like that. Okay, let's see, is there another one? That's a cube. Let's see. Sometimes you'll be given an equation like 16t squared minus 1600 equals 0, and you're wanting to solve for t, like you're wanting to solve for that time. That would be a time. So you're wanting to solve for that time. So isolate the variable, isolate the quadratic. So we're going to add 1600 to both sides. So 16t squared equals 1600, and then divide by 16, and then t squared equals 100. So t is plus or minus 10, but we have to think, if this is time, can I have a -10? No. So I put the answers I choose from, but then I choose the correct answer because it's time. So it would be 10 seconds, okay? So be careful with that. Be careful with the plus or minus. And just let me go over that again. Let me look for one of the problems that y'all missed on lesson 98. Where was it? Okay, so I started you off as x times x minus 9 equals 36. Then I said, okay, that's x squared minus 9x equals 36. And then we subtracted 36 from both sides. And then x squared minus 9x minus 36 equals 0. So that'd be x minus 12 and x plus 3. And then y'all put 12 and -3. It was beautiful. Y'all got there. But then you circled this as your answer. But remember, you're talking about a rectangle. a rectangle can't have a -3 on it. So what you do is you throw out the -3 and you choose the 12. So one of your sides is 12, because that's what it shows, it's x. The other side is x minus 9. So you should have done 12 minus 9 and gotten 3. So those are the dimensions for your rectangle, 12 and 3. So be careful with that when you're talking about things that can't be negatives, like time, like someone's age, like a rectangle, inside of a rectangle, the length of a rectangle, okay? So that is all of lesson 102. That's all there is in lesson 102. You're gonna do the warm-up, which is on page, let's see, 684. And you're gonna do the practice, A through G. That's due the 19th. And then the only other thing you have is the worksheet that I'm going to show you here in just a minute. But on the warm-up, let me tell you, on number 4 on the warm-up, make sure you leave it radical form, no decimal. On number 5, take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom. So you're going to take the square root of 9 and the square root of 49, and you're going to make it a fraction, okay? Square root of 9 is, you should know that. Square root of 49, you should know that. And then just leave it as a fraction, okay? But 4 needs to be a simplified radical, no decimal. No decimals on 4. No decimals on 4, okay? And then the practice, so that's all I need to talk about. Now, here is the worksheet that I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you this worksheet. I'm going to attach it to the email. And it's the same stuff. It's just, you know, everything needs to be isolated. And the back is blank, so you can show your work on the back, or you can show your work on a separate sheet of paper, but you cannot show your work here. It'll be too messy, okay? So I want to go over a few of these and just show you what I'm expecting to see and that kind of stuff. But again, notice all of them have 2 answers. So you're going to have a plus answer and a minus answer, just like on our notes. So this kind of helps you out knowing you've got to have 2 answers, okay? Again, you either show your work on the back or you show your work on a separate sheet of paper and make sure you send the work to me. So if you show your work on the back, make sure you send the front side and the back side, okay? So let me just go over a few of these to show you what's going on. So number 1 is 7x squared equals 28. So you divide by 7, so you're going to show all that. X squared is 4, so then x is plus or minus 2. So you'd put a plus 2 in one blank and a minus 2 in the next blank. Then let's see number 4. 2x squared plus x squared equals 3. So 2x squared plus x squared, because there's a 1 right here, so 2x squared plus x squared is 3x squared equals 3. Divide by 3. So x squared is 1. The square root of 1 is 1, so x is plus or minus 1. Some of y'all don't think 1 has a square root. It does. It's its own square root. Then let's look at number 7. Negative 220 equals 5 minus x squared. So I'm going to subtract the 5. So that gives me negative 225 equals negative x squared. Divide everything by negative 1. So 225 equals x squared. So then x is plus or minus 15. Because the square root of 225 is 15. So plus or minus 15. Then let's look at number 8. 10x squared equals 5x squared plus 125. So subtract 5x squared. 5x squared equals 125. Divide by 5. So x squared is 25. So x is plus or minus 5. Yeah. The rest of them, actually, let's look at number 13. 13 is a good one. 13 is 8 plus x squared equals 3x squared. So I'm going to subtract x squared. So that gives me 8 equals 2x squared. Some of y'all would just put a 3 here, canceling those x squareds. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to subtract your coefficients. 3 minus 1 is 2. Divide by 2. So x squared is 4. So x is plus or minus 2. The nice thing on this worksheet, everything comes out to be perfect squares and real easy to take the square root, okay? So lesson 102, just the warm-up and the practice. And then this worksheet 81, due May 19th. It's your last assignment. This year is about over. It's been a crazy year. I hope to see you next year in class, that kind of stuff. If you decide to take my honors geometry class, I understand if you don't, but if you do, and then I'll see you at school. So I'm hoping, praying that we see each other next year. Have a great summer. Do your best on this lesson, especially if you're wanting to bring your grade up. And again, have a great summer. Stay safe, stay healthy.